my overarching point, and I can just kind of tie
Or
it off
society
with this,
fails.
is that when I say rights are force, what I'm saying is the thing that you say is necessary, breathing, eating, these types of things. I think that those things, which you call rights, really are just force. You're saying I will use force in order to do this thing that I want to do to necessarily exist. And that another person can use force to stop those things from existing.
Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Tell Me I'm Wrong. So today we're going to be looking at an interview here between Tim Pool and Andrew Wilson, going over what kind of rights do you actually have, and do you actually really have any? It seems like a lot of people kind of just fall into the same spiral Tim Pool is here and just really don't get the overarching picture, which is why I made a couple of these. No, wait, wrong way. There we go, up there. A couple memes there up in that top corner. But this kind of, if you look at these two pictures, this pretty much is going to summarize the entire argument made throughout this. I'm still going to pitch in my 2 cents here and there. But keep in mind that these two right here, I think they just illustrate today's point very good. So yeah, I guess without further ado, we'll get into the video and we'll check out what Mr. Andrew has to say and Mr. Tim Pool.
Government enshrined protections are not real. Rights that as we know them, are just things that we recognize as things of value to us. So for instance, I usually define it as simply, you have a right to speak freely. If you're in the middle of the woods and you're buck naked, you can say whatever you want. You have a right to keep and bear arms. Pick up a stick, sharpen it, pointy stick, you can defend yourself. Ain't no one going to stop you. The question is, when you get into conflict with someone else, where is that line drawn? So the reality is, rights are recognized as things that we can and must do to survive and maximize potential.
I think rights are force, and I think that...
You think rights are force?
Government
rights are
protections.
What do you mean rights are
You're
force?
talking about government
No,
protections.
I'm talking about period. I'll explain what I mean. A right to me is an entitlement absent duty. That's a right. Okay, you're entitled to it, but you have no duty.
What does that mean?
It means that you have it. So like, okay.
An entitlement to speak.
Yeah, so if you have a right to own a gun.
To speak.
No, hang on, let me finish. If you have a right to own a gun, do you have a duty to own a gun?
But do you have a duty to speak?
No, you don't have a duty to speak.
If you have a right to vote, do you have a duty to vote? The answer
right.
is
So
yes.
it'd be an entitlement.
That's your argument.
It's an entitlement,
but
absent a duty.
But you can speak.
Yeah, you can.
And so
until you can't.
The question
until somebody stops you with force.
So you're talking about government restrictions are made up by us as a people.
Just people can adhere to your rights without any form of government. If you're walking down the street and you speak, and a guy turns around and smacks you in the mouth and breaks your jaw, right? He has now used force against whatever this right you think you have to speak. You have no right to do shit except whatever you can enforce. Right. Your mechanism is force, and the mechanism against you is force. And so all rights are is force.
You're talking about government protections, not rights.
No, I'm talking about rights. What is a right?
And you're gonna see they keep kind of, at least Tim, keeps kind of like spiraling on this topic and trying to find ways to justify it. Like, the core issue is, no matter what rights you think you're going to come up with, there's no way around it. Like, you jump down 70 rabbit holes, but they all lead to the same result. You need to have use of force in order to enforce your views. There's just no denying this universal truth.
So it is an intrinsic moral function.
Well, okay, intrinsic meaning what?
It means if, again, I'll try to explain. If you're born and you live in the middle of the woods, there are things you can do. You can hunt for food, you can defend yourself, you can speak freely. Now, what we've done in the United States
Unless you're born blind and you can't talk, right? Then where does your right to speak come from?
You lack the ability to speak,
right?
But you still have the means by which you are allowed to do it.
Yeah, but what makes it an intrinsic right to be able to do? Like, where does this idea come from other than you axiomatically kind of just say, because I can do something, I have the right to do something?
It's part of a evolutionary biological structure that resulted in the survival of humanity.
So if I like grab a spear and I can stab somebody with it, I have a right to?
No, that's
that's
attacking somebody. That's violating.
Yeah, but other than an axiom of you shouldn't do that because I just don't feel like you should, what makes it intrinsic that I don't do that?
That you don't go and kill another person?
Yeah.
So the way I view rights would be things that, and again, there's a debate over what rights are.
Yeah, let's start with that.
You know, see, he loopholes around this and just goes around and around and around, and he just doesn't want to admit the fact. Like, what if someone has pointy stick? What's stopping you? Like I showed in the beginning picture here. Let me bring it up real quick. This one. I don't know. Will it pull up? Yeah. Like, guy with pointy stick. Oh, sorry. My face, big ugly face is kind of in the way on that side. Let me resize this. And you guys can all see it. But, there we go. But yeah. Like, he just doesn't get it. It's this simple. It really is. Like they say, a picture can say 1,000 words. It is this simple. And Tim just doesn't get it, man.
Yeah, what are they?
No. So there, it's honestly difficult to define, but it is certain moral structures or.
I would say axioms. Would you agree with that? Just an axiom. So, like, you have inalienable rights from God according to the Constitution. This is an axiomatic principle. It means this is our like philosophical starting point. Is that we have these.
I would put it as things that were required or greatly beneficial to the survival of an individual that we greatly benefit.
I agree. I agree. We benefit. I just don't know what makes them intrinsic, or like you're born with them, or something like this. Other than we just kind of agree to it.
So I think the restrictions we kind of agree to, and some people might view some things as rights and other things not as rights. Mm-hmm. Like the left thinks healthcare is a human right, which makes literally no sense.
No sense.
But in terms of your ability to speak, you can walk around, you can speak, to defend yourself, you can pick up a stick, you can defend yourself.
But this goes back to the same argument. I can grab a spear and murder somebody. I can do that. Why don't I have a right to do that?
Because you are now causing harm to another person, which is a detriment.
But why is that valuable?
Why are other people valuable?
Yeah, well, why would that be an intrinsic value? So, like, I can
one would result in the end of humanity, and one results in the expansion of humanity.
Well, no, both can result in the expansion of humanity.
Right, but absolutely not. You're completely wrong.
No, I'm completely right.
You are wrong. Self-defense can result in expansion of humanity if you're using destruction for the purpose of ending something that is destructive. Mm-hmm. But if you are wantonly going around murdering people, you're actively reducing and harming humanity.
Well, okay, but that doesn't mean that you couldn't expand humanity by harming people. There's
so
nations
the argument
that do
of
this all the
self-defense
time.
is there are things that we believe we must be able to do for the betterment and survival of humanity.
Yeah, but when I'm asking you this question, right, I'm asking the foundation from which you say, I have the right to speak or write.
We need to be able to in order
to
survive.
You because you need to do something. So I'm not sure how that means you have a right to it, though.
Okay, so speech is not
like you
just
have to
saying
eat.
words.
You have a right to eat?
Yes, 100%.
Really? You have a right to do that?
Why would you?
Yes, you don't have a right to own. So if I have, but you have a right to eat, otherwise you'll die.
Yeah.
I don't understand.
Do you have a right to breathe? What about breathing?
These are good questions. Right?
Again, I don't think you understand. We're talking about intrinsic behaviors that are required for survival versus the government and humans deciding what we shouldn't have.
I don't think we're speaking past each other. I'm asking what makes them intrinsic. When you say I have a
See, Tim just doesn't get it here. Like, the example I love to always use is, what if you had a tribe of the lovable Care Bears, right? They're all about equality. They're all about peace. They're all, like, again, like, everyone has the right to food and right to medicine and all these, whatever, very progressive liberal stances, right? You got this tribe. Then you got another tribe of, if you don't give us all your stuff, we are gonna, like, murder you and drink the blood out of your skull type tribe. And they come rolling up and they're like, hey, we like your food. We want it. Give it to us. Or you're going to get like, right? Where's your right to eat now? Where is their rights? Now, I'm not saying like just because, and that's why the other meme there at the start is very important. Here, let me pull that one up. This is where this comes into play. And this is why I showcase this other one, because this is very true. You could be that peaceful, loving community. That's fine. But you need to know when is the time that you're going to need to defend yourself, and you need to be prepared for such days, because inevitably someone is going to want what you have. It's the reality of life. And like it says here, this is the important distinction between this. So going forward, keep that in mind. That's kind of where my thoughts are on this.
Right to eat. Okay.
If you don't, you'll die.
If you have if that guy has all the food over there, you no longer have a right to eat.
We're not talking about your right to steal from others. If you are standing
you no longer
in
have
the
a right
woods
to
by
eat.
if you're standing in the woods by yourself, eat that mushroom.
Okay, got it. You can eat the mushroom. But what makes it a right to eat that mushroom, and what makes it not a right for a guy standing next to the mushroom to say,
Okay, we're
I have a
talking- we're talking
gun
about
and I
laws.
don't want
Okay,
you
wait,
to
hold
eat
on.
that mushroom.
You're now once again talking about laws and restrictions.
Yeah, okay, but my whole theory is that rights themselves are force, and that's all they ever are. It's just your ability to use force to do thing you want to do.
I think you're just making
you call
an
that a
argument
right.
I call rights things that are essential to the survival of humanity.
So you have a right to your heart beating and your blood flowing and to blink and to.
Yes.
Okay, so if you
So
just
now you misunderstand because once again you're talking about government again.
how is this government? It
Okay,
doesn't.
if you are standing in the middle of the woods and your heart is beating, your heart has a right to beat. If your heart fails and you die, you died. If you're making an argument that someone should or should not be allowed to do something is an entirely human social.
That sounds very unempathetic there, Mr. Tim. If they just die, they die. Man, too bad there wasn't some healthcare or something in place to like make sure that this didn't happen, or like some type of social structure, or do the bodies just stay there? Like, does anyone come pick them up? I'm kind of curious in this world you're pitching how this all works. I got some follow-up questions, Tim.
Construct.
I agree.
Right. I'm saying that the reason we have protections of rights is because we've determined certain things are required for the reasonable survival and expansion of humanity.
I
These
agree. We
things-
agree to those things, and we act as though they're rights.
And the Bill of Rights.
but I don't think rights themselves exist.
The Bill of Rights is a recognition of certain things that we do for the betterment of survival that must be protected from government. Now, if you want to argue the amendments in the Bill of Rights are nonsensical, fine. If you want to have a moral argument or philosophical argument about what is required or intrinsic to the survival of humanity, by all means have that argument. But rights do exist. It just means some you might not agree with and some you might think aren't. Those are philosophical debates.
Yeah, but when you say exist, right? Do you mean outside of your brain they exist, or do they only exist as a construction of your mind where you say, I have a right to do X?
If we observe creatures in the wild, we will see them required to do things to survive.
Yeah, okay, so
If you inhibit those things, they will die.
So
Yes, deers need to go drink water. You're right. But bear will also come eat deer. That is also a fact of life, Tim.
if just rights
protect
to you,
those things.
So the rights to you just mean things which are a requirement for your existence?
And typically we define them as such because they transcend the basic obvious things like breathing and drinking water.
Owning a gun isn't a requirement to
So it's like, in that scenario I just posed with deer, like, deer has the right to water in his head. Well, bear got the right to your food. He's gonna eat you. So, where is the deer's right to water? Like, it's the same principle. Like, I don't know how it's just right past Tim's head on this one. Like, I mean, he's made some decent arguments in the past, to be fair. I like his, some of his content. He's pretty decent dude. Love Andrew, though. I'm not gonna lie, I'm trying to fanboy over him, but, like, he slays it in this one.
your existence.
No, defending yourself is.
Yeah, but you
If a bear comes and you're in the middle of the woods and you don't have the ability to defend yourself, you cease to exist and humans cease to exist. So humans do defend themselves. Then as human society, we've decided this should be protected, otherwise humans will cease to exist.
Yeah, but why? Okay, but this makes no sense, right? So
Certainly does.
if all right is to you, Tim, is thing X which is necessary for the survival.
And see what he said right there. And he just tries to skim past it and downplay it really fast. He's like, there are things we need for survival. If we have to shoot said bear to keep us safe, we have to shoot said bear. Yeah, that's the point. Like, violence is what's gonna keep you safe. Like, you're skimming right past it. Like, you said it, Tim. You said it. You were almost there. You were almost there. You were right on the fence.
Of a man, in this case, blinking and breathing and eating and pooping and whatever. You have the right to poop shall not be under because you have a right to do that because it's like something you need to do to be alive.
Right, but you
Okay?
can't poop on someone's floor.
Why
or in their
couldn't you
house.
extend that to literally everything? You need healthcare to survive. You need guns
You have
to
a right
survive.
to
You need
access-
a house to survive. You
So
need
once
everything
again,
to survive.
I think we should move on, but I think the challenge.
I think we should move on because this is the progressive liberal approach and stuff like that, right? We're going to tax the shit out of you. We're going to sit there. Everything you own is what we own. And then, we'll try, like, we got to provide all this for the people. We give you the house. We give you all this. Like, total progressive liberal approach.
Is I don't know if you're unwilling to understand or what. You have no right to take other things
he
from
tries
other
to
people.
gaslight.
You take their labor. You have no right to.
I'm literally trying to gaslight Andrew. Like, I don't know if you're just not willing to understand. We understand what you're saying, Tim. We get it. You don't understand what you're saying.
Force a doctor to perform surgery on you, but you certainly have a right to ask him for it.
Those are just assertions. Like, you just assert these things as though they have a grounding epistemic foundation from which you can make the assertion. Based on where do you make the assertion that you're not allowed to do X other than because Tim Pool's preference is that you don't?
And I'm literally saying you're talking about laws and social order right now, not human behaviors for survival.
I think human behaviors are laws and social orders. I think that's this. You're saying the same thing.
No, if a person was in the middle of the woods, they'd be foraging and looking for food.
Yeah. What does that have to do with what I just said?
You're talking about what the government
human
can and can't do. I'm talking about what humans need to do to survive.
Yeah. Okay. Well, humans also have to have other humans around to survive.
And so this is communication is essential. The right to defend yourself is essential. The right to secure your possessions is essential. These things, without them, humans cease to function properly. And then you get the Soviet bloc, you get starvation, you get genocides.
It's
and
also
this is a detriment
it's
to.
a function of our belief system in the United States that we have natural rights. I mean,
I agree with that.
That's a huge part of it.
I agree with that. I agree with that. That in the United States we agree that
But
we
I think
have
that
them.
You can say, I think you can
Not
say that
sure that we
everyone,
do.
I think that you can say that everyone has these rights, and it's a function of whether or not their government allows the rights to be recognized.
That's the contention. When you
So-
say, I think everybody has these rights.
Yeah, that is my belief.
Yeah, it's a belief
Yeah,
based on
based on existence. I mean,
yeah, based on just
you know.
your preferences.
So there's.
I don't think
in
it's
the,
a
in the, in
preference.
the
I
big,
think everyone has a right to breathe. And
in the
blink.
and you do in the big picture of what are the list of fundamental rights that exist to humans.
And that's the thing, you know, when people are going to sit here and be like, well, what gives you the right to say the shit you say? And, well, I'm showing you, like, you know, like, look at some of the other videos that we just put out, like, you know, the decline in intelligence. Like, when I say, like, people just aren't understanding this, we're seeing why, you know? And I'm not trying to talk shit about Tim here, you know? But, you could just see he's just not getting it. I don't know if it's just he's not understanding the hypothetical. I don't know what it is, but like I said, that first meme pretty much sums this whole debate up so easily, and it just I don't know what the answer is in order to get these people over, because it seems like he's genuine enough to sit here and have the conversation. I'll give it that. I'll give Tim that. At least he's sit here and genuine enough to have the conversation. He seems genuine enough, but I'm not going to lie, though. Some of these arguments just seems like gaslighting, twisting it, and a little bit disingenuous. A little bit here and there.
Cultures debate these things wildly, but there are a small handful which are true and correct. If inhibited, a person dies.
Agreed. But what I'm saying, I guess my overarching point, and I can just kind of tie
Or
it off
society
with this,
fails.
is that when I say rights are forced, what I'm saying is the thing that you say is necessary, breathing, eating, these types of things. I think that those things, which you call rights, really are just force. You're saying I will use force in order to do this thing that I want to do to necessarily exist. And that another person can use force to stop those things from existing.
And then you can use force to stop them.
Right, and then you can use force, et cetera, et
Because you have a
cetera.
right to
But all we're
self-defense.
really doing is just moving the goalpost of force around, right? So if this group says this group does not have the right to breathe, they do not have the right to eat, they do not have the right to do any of this shit, and they go and put a stop to it,
But you don't-
what
but
are we
that group-
appealing to for
but that
why it
group
is that you
doesn't-
can't do that?
That group doesn't have the right to do
Yeah,
that.
but that makes no sense.
Like
Why
you're
wouldn't they
saying-
have the
you're
right
saying-
to do that?
I feel
you're
like-
saying might makes right, which is a
Well, it's
perspective.
beyond that. I think you're making
It
a
makes.
postmodernist argument for why you should be allowed to do things that other people don't want you to do.
I think I think the opposite is true.
I'm making.
I would use a justification of God, and I would appeal to something which is unchanging and an unchanging standard for moral justifications for oughts. But what you're doing when you say a right and you're appealing to like the Constitution, that's postmodernist subjective standards of nonsense, right? It's just like
No, it's moral
we all
foundation.
decided that we have these rights, so we do. There's no justification for any of them.
So
Zero.
you don't believe in any intrinsic moral foundations?
No, I do believe in intrinsic moral foundations and epistemic justifications and ontological justifications, which would come from God.
I think you're doing deconstructivist reasoning to argue why.
It's just basic philosophy. It has nothing to do with deconstruction or postmodernism. Basic philosophy, you have to have a justification for a position.
And when I've given you one, you just reject it every
yeah,
time.
well,
You just say,
because
nope,
they're axiomatic. So you haven't demonstrated why the axiom or the starting point. We start with rights, Andrew. You haven't demonstrated why we do, other than because I observe that if we don't act in this way, you expire. But it's like, okay, but why is that even bad? Like, why is that even a bad thing?
Why is it bad that humans cease to exist?
Yeah, why would that even be a bad thing from the worldview of rights? Like, oh, okay, if you don't have this right, you die. But you haven't justified why that's even a bad thing.
Because humans exist through a pattern of evolution towards, or creation, whichever you decide, for to be fruitful, to bear fruit, and etc. These things are components of creation and life. I think this aligns perfectly with like a Christian, Judeo-Christian moral worldview, and I think these things are requirements for the efficient expansion and fruitfulness of humans. So they are natural. Either from an evolutionary standpoint, humans developed to inherit certain requirements to function efficiently, and when these things are curtailed, we see inefficiency and collapse, disease, and chaos.
This is circular. So you go, okay, we need to bear fruit and multiply. Why? Well, because then we can exist.
Because God
why do
said
we
so.
need to exist? Because then we can bear fruit and multiply. Okay, but why? Because then we can
Okay,
exist.
you're just being contrarian for no reason.
No, it's not contrarian. I'm giving you a real
You
principle.
believe in God?
Yeah, I'm a
So
Christian.
if I say God gives you a mandate,
Christian.
so when God says has a mandate to be fruitful and multiply, do you say yes or no?
Yo, of course.
Are there certain characteristics and behaviors that result in benefit and in more efficient, fruitful multiplying?
Of course.
Aren't the, so are
That's
those
divine.
that's-
But this is, hang on, this is divine command. Justification from divine command has nothing to do with libertarian nonsense of constitutional egalitarianism.
I think instead of having a discussion on the merits of what rights might mean, you're instead upset over what libertarians think rights might.
See, and I think that's the problem is like he's trying to, I guess, argue two different worldviews and expect them to get like. We all know where, like, say, the Christian worldview is going to stand on this, right? Like, true Christian worldview and stuff. Again, me being an atheist, like, I'm not naive enough to know where they stand on this, you know? It's just, it's baffling to just be like, wow, maybe they don't or do tolerate stuff. Like, it's just, it's crazy, man. Just to beat around the bush around it, Tim, like, come on.
I mean, as opposed to what I'm actually trying to say.
Okay, well, do you justify rights as coming from God?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, then we're fine there. But so I think we actually agree. So then if that is the case, if whatever you think rights are come from God.
And that's the thing. I might not agree in the whole premise where I think rights come from God or anything, but I can put myself in this hypothetical and be like, okay, in this circumstance, let's pretend they do. Follow the logic, give an answer. It's not that hard.
Then whatever else we're appealing to external to God for where a right comes from isn't really a right, right? It's not really a right.
I think that life, goodness, creation, there is
It's a simple yes or no answer, Tim. Yes or no.
a deep overlap. I think a simple way to look at it is, yin yang, within good there is some evil, within evil there is some good. And a way to explain that is sometimes we have to destroy to create. What does that mean? If there's a mass murderer who's murdering children, we don't want to, but we stop that person to defend ourselves and others' lives. I think that there is divine mandate that we must, be fruitful, multiply. We are here to
Tim, brother, did you hear what you just said? Goes back to that other picture, my man. Sometimes you could try to be the peaceful group as much as you want, but you need to acknowledge this, though, Tim. You need to acknowledge this. Sometimes this is necessary.
organized to create. There's a secular way of looking at it. It's evolution that developed us into this point where we have internalized these things that we must do, or that result in a more efficient way of life. Or more simply, there is a God, there is a divine structure and mandate, which results in certain things that are beneficial to mankind that I would describe as good and just, and there are things that are evil and unjust.
So as we get to the heart of it then, right here, where we come to this agreement, where I reject this, is that I think all the things you just stated are duties. They're duties, they're the opposite of rights. You have a duty.
I just think we're having a semantic argument.
Well, but semantics are super important so we don't speak past each other. So when I say a duty, it's an obligation to do a thing based on the fact that you're commanded to, in this case by God. A right, I would say, is an entitlement absent duty. So if that's the case, what you're listing out is like God is giving us these duties to do. I'm not sure what rights he's giving you.
I'm saying there are certain behaviors that God... that there are certain behaviors, there are certain functions of life that are a component of God's divine plan mandate, and I could argue it in a secular way for people who don't believe in God or whatever.
Sure.
There's a natural structure of the universe that says to humans, be fruitful and multiply, and these things are important for the efficient structure of such.
Thanks for watching this clip.
Yeah, like, it just, sorry, let me, hide that, there you go. It just seemed like Tim just didn't get it the whole time. I don't know what was up with it. It just seemed like the main point just went right over his head the whole time there. But at the end of the day, though, Andrew, I think it's pretty correct from my understanding of the world and stuff. I would have to tend to agree with him and say, people need to realize that all these things you perceive as rights and stuff, these are only rights. It's because of what we're willing to enforce. So I think when we're looking at problems and issues within society nowadays, again, we're seeing a lot of people being very docile on, I would say specifically one side of the aisle. But, you guys can tell me if I'm wrong on that. Let me know what you guys think of today's episode and all. If you guys think, Andrew's wrong or something like that, let me know your worldview. Don't just sit here and be like, nah, you guys are wrong. You guys are a bunch of crazy guys. Like, why are we wrong? Why is this view wrong? What makes you think, like, in any sense, your rights are anything more than just what you made up in your head? And people act on this every single day as if it's reality, as if it's some like objective metric, or like, no. A lot of us are just living in our delusional head. Time to come back to reality. Time to snap out of it. Again, you guys think I'm wrong? Tell me in the comments why I'm wrong. Make sure you like, sub, share, all that good stuff. Hope you guys stay safe, and we'll see you guys next time hopefully tomorrow for the next episode. Catch you guys later.